Hello and welcome to Unwatchables, the film podcast where father knows best. All the different ways to commit murder. I am Marc Dottavio.
Ooh, and I'm Seth Troyer.
And today we are joined by film critic Elena Lazic for two films about what we now call family annihilators, the real-life phenomenon of husbands and fathers who decide to kill their entire families. First up is one of the bleakest films of a very bleak decade. Jeff Kanew's 1979 drama Natural Enemies has until recently been unavailable for decades. We will discuss what makes it so harrowing and how it compares to a slightly more fun and much more well-known take on the topic, Joseph Ruben's 1987 horror film, The Stepfather. And
Thank
once
you,
again,
stepdad.
You're welcome, stepson. Well, our guest again is Elena Lazic. She is the founder and editor of Animus magazine when she's not hosting Q&As or writing for Blu-ray releases for Arrow or Criterion. She is on the editorial staff of Mubi, and her writing has appeared in Sight and Sound, The Guardian, Little White Lies, Seventh Row, many, many other publications. Elena, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule for us.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's such a pleasure to talk about very bleak films, very upsetting films. It's one of my favorite things to do, and there aren't that many places to do it. So I'm very happy to
help.
be here.
Yeah, you're in the right place. Although these were films that we hadn't considered covering before. I'd never even heard of Natural Enemies, and
No.
I guess my first question was, what inspired you to propose this? And I assume it had something to do with Natural Enemies kind of just recently coming back into the consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So I hadn't heard of Natural Enemies at all until it was programmed as part of Bleak Week at the American Cinematheque, which is a festival. Well, it's like a sort of festival, I guess, of films that are extremely bleak that the American Cinematheque has been doing. I think this year was the 5th year. And I think Natural Enemies maybe was last year. I can't remember, but quite recently. And I've never been to Los Angeles. I've never been to Bleak Week, but I've been obsessed with the concept from day one. And I was looking at the program and I saw this film and I was very, very intrigued by the concept. So I decided to watch it. And then when you guys asked me to participate, I thought it would make a great double bill with The Stepfather because, it's basically about the same thing. And I had seen The Stepfather before, and it's a film I really, really enjoy. But Natural Enemies, I hadn't seen it until I watched it for this podcast. So it was great to have a reason to do it.
Yeah, and do we have any idea why this was so obscure? Because
I felt I couldn't really find anything other than the obvious, which would be this doesn't go over with a lot of audiences for multiple reasons. But I couldn't really find anything like distribution hell or anything or censorship, because it also doesn't have actual scenes of gore or anything in it necessarily. It's just all what they're talking about. So I couldn't really find anything.
Yeah, I really don't know either. I feel like it's such it's maybe the film is just too direct about what it's about, and it's kind of done in this kind of almost art house mode that just maybe makes it too upsetting for some people. But I don't know. I'm just very glad. I don't know how they brought it back, but I'm just really glad it's back, and I think it's sadly, I was just searching the topic, and it's not at all fictional thing that happens, and even these days. And it's not because one of my favorite kind of theme in terms of films, but also in terms of specifically upsetting films, is serial killers. And serial killers were much more prevalent, or at least we knew more about them, I suppose, in the 70s. And Natural Enemies is from the 70s, but that's not because family annihilators were more prevalent necessarily then. They still are really prevalent today. It has that thing. Maybe it's we can look back at films about serial killers, or we still make films and shows now about serial killers, like the Dharma TV show a few years ago, which I thought was amazing, because there's this distance, but there isn't really a distance with this topic in the same way.
Yeah, and even though, I mean, it's technically about the same subject as The Stepfather is, I guess watching it does make it kind of apparent why maybe this one didn't stay in the public imagination or use its hook in the exciting kind of way that The Stepfather
Mm,
does. So even though we have a very incendiary topic, subject matter here, uh, this isn't a film where that's about him really attacking his family. It's a very slow, thoughtful, dry, very bleak film that is it's a drama basically. It's following this
mm,
guy's day as he's going about it, with the end point that he announces at the beginning of the film being that this is the day where he's going to kill his family and himself. And there's almost something academic about his interest about it, right? Where
yeah.
he's going throughout his day and he keeps bringing up the topic to everybody that he runs into, where they're like, "Hey buddy, how you doing?" And he's like, "Yeah, so what do you think about all these guys who kill their families?" And
Right. The
they're like,
damnedest thing.
and they're like, "Yeah, that's kind of weird, but how are you doing, buddy?"
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so much of it is more based in not setting it up for, I guess, early spoiler, it doesn't actually erupt in a cartoonish slasher movie. Like,
Mm,
if anything, that might have been a relief and maybe something for an audience. Like, funnily enough, like that would actually help an audience find a foothold or something, or some sort of relief in a way. But here it is all just slow burn, and it's not so much about it doesn't even seem like it's about the violence of it. It is the thought that is in his
mm,
head. It's like invasive and looping in his head, which I think is seems to be very true to whether it's a school shooter or a family annihilator. It is, and even if you don't have like thoughts like as wild as that, everybody, if you're just driving on a bridge, or something in your car, you might have like an invasive thought of like, well, what if I jerked the wheel or something? Like it's
mhm,
that kind of examination, and this is kind of like the dark situation where like, what if you couldn't get that thought out of your head, and he's just can't. So
mhm,
it's almost like he feels like it's prophesied. It's like destiny and fate. He can't do anything about it. He's going to do it.
mhm. Yeah, it's interesting because it's like also I think that's got a lot to do with like the milieu of the characters where Hal Holbrook plays a man who is the editor of a science journal, which I think is quite interesting. And also like I just love that you could be the editor of a small science journal and have an office in New York at the time. Like he definitely would not have an office now. He would just be working from
Right.
home,
Live
I
in a
think.
nice house in the country.
Yeah, he's got a really beautiful house,
Mhm.
whatever. I mean, he complains about the house, but it's a big house. And yeah, and it's, so I think there's this kind of they evolve in this intellectual milieu. So he seems to approach it from this, as you were saying, like very kind of cold perspective. He's like, I've had this thought about this. What do you think? And like it's like a debate, like it's something to just talk very coldly about. And that's something I really like about the film is that you have these characters having a lot of conversations. Like the film is a lot about people chatting. But even then, like you can see and feel, I think, some of the emotion there through the performances and through kind of, yeah, just the filmmaking, the editing. Like it's not as dry as all that because you have just the images of like just seeing someone say something like that so horrible to a friend, to a colleague, to their wives. So I think there's something really cinematic about it, and I really wonder what the book is like because it's based on a novel, and
Right.
I imagine it's just really painful to read. Just I imagine it's a bit like American Psycho or something, where you have
Mhm.
even less of a sense of maybe of the emotion, and yeah, it's very. I found it quite obviously very kind of upsetting, but also very like gripping because of that emotion.
Yeah, I'm definitely curious about the novel too, which seems like it's not any easier to find probably than the movie has been
No.
for a while. Uh, and also, maybe something that has contributed to the obscurity is, the director has a very interesting filmography. Jeff Kanew,
Yeah.
who he wrote, directed, and edited this. And if you pull up his movies, he's definitely best known for Revenge of the Nerds uh,
Yes.
and Troop Beverly Hills. So we don't really
If you
have
like those two movies, you'll like this one.
Yeah, for sure. What a triple feature. So that's
I
interesting.
think I saw
too,
a Lassie
that-
movie on there too. Wild.
Yeah. So that probably didn't help, I guess, that, it's not a director whose filmography people are diving into a lot. And almost maybe this is like a one-off compared to other stuff that he had done. I understand that there's interviews and stuff with him on the Blu-ray release from a few years ago. So I wasn't able to see any of that, but I'm sure that would be interesting to hear about what brought him to this story and then what took him away from it. But it does start out, like you said, it announces the hook right up front, where that is definitely guides the rest of the movie and is very compelling. And it's not just an academic interest he has in this, because one of the first scenes after that we get is one of the more like depressing sex scenes I've ever seen. If you want to even quote unquote sex scene.
Right. Yeah.
Where his wife sleeps in a separate room and is almost catatonic with depression. And he knows that only if she doesn't move and basically lays there either asleep or feigning sleep is when he can go ahead and have sex. It's really more like him. I think there's a line later on in the movie where he says, "We had sex. Well, really, I had sex."
Yeah.
And that's
it's
pretty bleak too. So we are getting this portrait of him being in a very unhappy marriage and a general malaise with his entire life.
It's really interesting. It's interesting as well because, like, as the film progresses, like, because obviously if you think of someone saying that he's going to do this, you're like, wow, he's really cruel, he's crazy. And then as the film progresses, we learn more and more about him, but also his wife, and how she had depression for years and just, felt terrible and actually tried to, kill herself several times. And so I was thinking, like, is the film going to go into the direction of, like, where he wants to kill her to help her as well? But he never once says this. He never once says, I'm going to, free her of her misery, which is really interesting, I think, because it's like, having done a little bit of reading on family and Annihilators, and especially on the real case that inspired the Stepfather, it seems like that is often one of the reasons why these men, it's not always men, but it's often men, do this, is that they think that the life of their family is so miserable that they want to free them. So it's like kind of seen as like an act of love in a perverse way. Whereas in this film, it really wasn't that. I don't think he really cared about whether his wife was really happy or not. And that's what's really bleak, especially at the very end, like what he finally decides to do. It's like, oh yeah, no, he doesn't care. He just fully does not care. He's gone. And that's completely like shattering. And it actually did remind me a little bit of films about serial killers, where the good ones, not that many, they kind of pretend like you can sympathize with them for a long time. You're like, yeah, I can understand. He had a bad childhood and all this. But then you eventually come up to like a limit where you're like, I cannot understand this. Like you're just doing it because you want to do it. You're just killing people because you want to kill people. And I felt like this was kind of doing the same thing. It was like, oh no, yeah, we can talk about it for hours about why he's doing this. But at the end of the day, he just wants to do it. And there's no justification for that. And yeah, that's what I think to me is the final bleak note in this extremely bleak film. But yeah, I found it really horribly coherent in that way.
Yeah, I do love the performance that the wife gives. Louise Fletcher, who was like the like evil nurse
Ratched.
Or whatever. Yeah, Nurse Ratched in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And here she is. This is a sequel to that after the events of Cuckoo's Nest, I guess. But yeah, I mean, both of the central performances are great. I love Hal Holbrook, the father here, and there's so much to his monotone performance that gives a lot of room for us to wonder and also even get our hopes up here and there. A lot of the arc of the movie, like I was almost reminded of the movie A Single Man by with Colin Firth as like the evil single man, because that's a movie where everything's building up to it's his last day and he's going to kill himself.
Wow, yeah.
And as he goes along, there's like things that sort of convince him maybe he wants to live or maybe he doesn't. And that's sort of an arc here. And you build some of the tension is that you're kind of building up like, oh, okay, like maybe we are going to get out of here or something. And that a lot of that comes from the wife. Like there's a very real, like a lot of the climax is based around their back and forth and her really shelling it out and explaining like what's been going on all these years and how can we do this and how can we get through this, and I want to work, I'll do anything to work through this. Which again all just constantly keeps hitting walls with his just black dark center, which is just this like it's not intellectual. The whole thing is that it can't be sorted out. There can't be logic to it. It is just a thing that it's a button that must be pressed.
Yeah, and I was kind of surprised that it's almost like this, at the end of the day, isn't totally about family annihilators or providing that much insight into it, because it does become more and more about kind of a general existential, like, what's the point of going on crisis that he's having. And it does specifically become about this unhappy marriage, because we get more and more flashbacks to this relationship. We get more and more of the wife's perspective throughout as well. The children are pretty much a non-presence. Like we literally only see like one shot of each of them, and it's not even in real life. It's like in a fantasy scene where he's visualizing killing them. So they never even like say anything specific about them in his conversations. He just kind of, it's almost theoretical. He just keeps mentioning the children,
which is telling that he has kids that he does not give a shit about. Yeah.
And so there's not really a sense that he's trying to rescue them or free them or any of those things that you kind of hear about with people who do this in real life. And so it's almost like, I'm not sure if the movie really distinguishes between, his general discontent and suicidal ideation maybe versus where that would take the leap to killing his whole family. And maybe that's just kind of like they're filling this with more kind of conventional dramatic concerns the longer that the movie goes on, that we're getting a lot more about it coming down to his relationship with his wife kind of above everything else. And certainly he is, a miserable guy overall.
Yeah. It's interesting what you're saying as well. I totally agree. And I think also it kind of connects to this thing that I think the film is kind of doing. You were saying like it's almost not about family annihilator. I think, how do you say family annihilator? How do you pronounce?
I guess annihilator.
Annihilator. Okay. It connects to what you were saying about how the film is almost not really about a family annihilator, because it's almost like when we talk about family annihilators in real life and in the real cases, especially as I already mentioned, the real case that inspired the Stepfather, it's really about like the family, but it's also specifically about the role of the man in the family. And there's this whole thing about like male ego, but it's usually filtered through the role of the man in the family. Whereas here it feels like, as you were saying, he doesn't care about his children. He doesn't seem to care about them. He sort of cares about his wife, but not like she's just there. Kind of. He doesn't seem like, it doesn't seem like their marriage was ever really that great of a marriage, or, that kind of ideal of what a marriage is supposed to be like. She just kind of, I guess, liked each other and got married, and then it just started going on from there. So it's almost like the film is not about a family annihilator. It's about a man who is just decided to take it all on other people. Like he decided like he hates his life, and he also wants to kill the people in his life, but that's not because the family has failed. It's because he just hates his life. So it's like it's almost like even more selfish. Like he's just it's even more. It's almost like the film is even more damning about the male ego, because it's like, oh no, even for a man who doesn't believe in the family particularly, he would also do this. Like it's just like, so it's even bleaker. Like he doesn't have, it's not like he has these like unrealistic expectations of what a family should be like, and then finds that it didn't work out that way, and therefore decides to kill his family. It's just like, I'm sad, so I'm gonna kill everyone. So it's like even bleaker. And I guess that maybe that's what takes it in a more like, as you were saying, intellectual but like existential space, where he's kind of more thinking about what is the point of just living. Like I saw some people saying that the film is kind of about the nuclear family and kind of bourgeoisie and all these things. I don't really think it's really about that much. Like he just happens to be kind of in that milieu, but it's just about a guy who really wants to have sex with 5 women at once. Like that's about about the extent of his trauma. Like he's just sad because he's not happy with the sex he's having with his wife and really wants to have more sex with other women. Like that's about how as complex as he really is. So it's even bleaker.
Yeah. I mean, I think it also points to, like, again, to mention whatever it is, these random acts that we can't explain, and we're always asking why. Like most of it, like even the answer, like, oh, I wanted to protect my family, or blah blah blah, or like I was bullied at school, or whatever it is. Like none of it really points to like satisfactory answers, or answers that we could really like understand at all.
Mm.
As people who are not going to be the people that press these buttons, it is more so that it is bleak, as you say, from these people's perspectives, that they need to turn to this element of like ultimate self-harm in order to feel something, like, because everything is just so probably comes from a numb place, a place of boredom, a place of depression, right? Where and then you hear about something like, you can like I heard that you can just kill your family. Never thought about that. Or you can blow up a building, or whatever it is. And boy, I'd feel something there. I think I like, like I'm not feeling anything here. That seems to be what would actually be in the center of this, is just like wanting to feel something, even if it's the last thing you ever feel, I guess. Which is just, yeah, I don't know. It is just super bleak that someone would get to that point.
I think that it's telling that the movie kind of takes this structure that develops throughout of just being a series of encounters with all these different people that he encounters. So, he tends to either run into strangers or people that he knows, and everyone is either giving or inspiring some kind of monologue just generally about like loneliness and disconnection, or maybe commenting on his specific situation. So we kind of get this row of like, he talks to an astronaut and a Holocaust survivor and a cab driver and the 5 sex workers. It sounds like I'm setting up like a dirty joke, but like these are the people that this random woman on a train, and a lot of their monologues are a little kind of meandering or disconnected from each other, like almost like the movie's trying to investigate the state of like the country as a whole. There's a lot of general statements. He's talking to, I think, a professor of some kind, maybe. It wasn't clear to me who she was, who tells him that the American family is dying without your help. And it seems like it's trying to throw a lot of stuff out there like that. We get a scene of him listening, driving around in his car, listening to all bad news on the radio. Like we're somehow supposed to be taking this as a statement about the national malaise as well. And I'm not, maybe that's just what keeps taking it away from the whole killing your family conceit, that it has something bigger on its mind that I'm not really sure it taps into that much, because everything is so general, and everyone has their own little concerns. It feels kind of theatrical to me too, the series of conversations, especially the last, like the climax, I guess, which is like a series of conversations with his wife. It kind of reminded me of Bergman, actually, and not my favorite aspects of Bergman. We also have like, the ticking clocks on the soundtrack and everything very much put me in the mind of like Cries and Whispers. So maybe your mileage will vary as far as you're into that kind of filmmaking. And maybe this is this director kind of dipping his toe in and trying to do Bergman, for a movie before he gets onto the nerds.
Yeah. For
any
me,
of the
it kind of
politics stuff
Sorry, go
didn't
ahead.
work for me as far as gelling anywhere. Because again, it all goes back to like what I was saying, where it's like, well, so and so is president and X nuclear thing is occurring, so I killed my family. Like that still is like it doesn't add up, really in any sort of way. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it kind of felt like these were almost like MacGuffins, these conversations, because it's like you expect him to engage genuinely with those conversations and try and actually debate them, but it kind of always ends up being the other person talking and him not really engaging with anything, because I think ultimately he doesn't care, and that's the problem. Like, he, as you were saying, I think it was really well put what you were saying, Seth, about how he's numb. I think that's the key, because he just doesn't care about anything, and he can't connect to anything that anyone is saying to him, whether it's about the state of the world, or being an having seen the earth from the moon, or anything, or even the Holocaust. Like, he doesn't care. He just doesn't care. I think a man who can sit in front of a Holocaust survivor and compare his situation to being in a camp, that's literally what he does in the film. It's incredible. And his friend, because it's his friend, is so calm about it. I think that's a man who doesn't care. Like, he just doesn't connect to anything real. And so I think it's kind of almost like you expect him every time to, like, maybe this is going to do it. Maybe this is going to make it clear what's wrong with him, and he's going to talk. And then eventually you get to his wife and you're like, well, that's the closest person to him. Maybe that's going to do it. And everything she says is exactly right on. It's like exactly what you'd want to hear if you were in his situation, if you were depressed. Like, you really feel like there's some, they're breaking through something there in those conversations, in those, I guess, almost one-way conversations. Like, she's being so patient and kind to him, and she's saying things that genuinely, challenge some of the stuff he's told us about his wife, and that make her seem so much like more, loving and interesting and worth, living with. And yet that doesn't work either. So I think it's like, it's kind of to show, it's kind of like putting us through these steps to show us, no, he doesn't care. It's gone. Like, it's nothing can help him at this stage. So it's again bleak.
She definitely does not get anywhere with him, especially in that long series of conversations at the end. Like, he's just not giving anything. And really, I think my favorite part of the movie is Louise Fletcher's performance, because the way that she captures this raw, just pain, whether it's her, after she's getting shock treatments, and the way that she just captures this really dark but clinical depression. I think if nothing else is worth, preserving this film for as something in her career, to show that, because I don't think Hal Holbrook gets really enough to do besides be the guy who's going around kind of inspiring these conversations, that he doesn't really, by design, doesn't have many notes to hit throughout, where she really brings the humanity and the, the heart to the movie. So I was really happy to see, like, oh, this is like a lost, really, really good performance.
It's like she's talking every time she's saying something. It's like you can feel the effort of this person to engage and to just express herself, like, because she's so used to not doing that, and she went through times. You can feel the history of, like, how long she's suffered, and in everything she says, that she's got this, like, patience and this quietness about her. Like, she's still a bit quite fragile, but also she has this, like, weird, I guess, almost wisdom, strength to her whenever she's talking, where she doesn't need to raise her voice. Like, she feels like she's lived stuff, like she's seen some stuff, in her performance. Whereas he's just kind of mean. He's just cold and mean.
Yeah, she addresses all the things that he's basically simplified her to in his mind as being just like, oh, she's just miserable. She also would like it if I just blew her away. She's not willing to try anything and everything.
Yeah.
She absolutely answers all of it. And I think she's one of a couple characters here that do, I don't know, like, again, even if it's not pointing towards something as wild and, like, intense as a situation like this, it kind of, like, where this ends, as much as it's kind of sensational a little bit, I'm not sure I love how the, like, very end is handled, but I don't know, at the end of the day, it does kind of point towards this, like, whether, even if it's just trying to talk to your parents about politics or something, you do just, like, does it really, really, really doesn't matter. I could say everything right. Or, if you've dealt with, like, a partner that's in a difficult place, or, like, a friend who's in a dark place, like, or you're trying to dissuade someone of something from being a certain way that's destructive. Like if they've made up their mind, it is just so doesn't matter. Like which in movies you're so used to that hope where no, all they need is a good speech from a other or one of the other characters and they'll crack. And because that's how it works, right? But in reality, we all know like you can do everything you can and write a fucking essay for somebody and they'll just burn it at the end of the day and do whatever it is what they were going to do. Like more often than not, I don't think it's like that we totally live in a bleak place where we can't change and people can't gain things from others. But this does point towards that, which is something that does happen for sure.
I guess it's like I don't know if I fully agree with this. I don't know if it's like, oh, it's not worth trying. I think it is worth trying. But I guess the film does show that if you are like faced with someone, even not even necessarily that bleak, but someone struggling, you should do some stuff like that and not just talk. Like, why does he still have this rifle in his house? Like, why isn't like anyone that he spoke to should have like gone to the house and take it away and just and no one does this. And that's, to me, that was really striking. And it was just like, take him, take people seriously. Like, or maybe it's like a measure of how his life has derailed so much that like no one would do this for him.
Or the one guy who's just like at a bar with him and is just like, well, I guess he didn't finish his drink and he left. I guess he's gonna go home and blow his family away. Couldn't talk him out of it. Shucks.
Well, I guess that's a question you could ask yourself at certain points in the movie, which is how serious is he about this? And I guess the fact that they do find the gun starts pushing you towards, oh, he was actually planning on it. But maybe he wasn't. Maybe it was still a little bit more open-ended in his mind than he was letting on. Because I was surprised how basically his plan like gets back to his wife, like while there's still a lot of movie left too. So there's kind of a while where they're kind of directly talking about this idea, almost like it's not in the cards for it to happen anymore. Let's talk about what was making you feel this way. And it does kind of take that all the way to the end, which I feel like we should talk about the ending. So if anyone listening now is interested in this movie and wants to pause and come back after watching it, this would be the point too, because this has a definite like stinger at the end where, I don't know, it doesn't necessarily seem like we've gotten anywhere or like he has gotten to the root of any of his problems or anything, but the point where he would have actually done this seems to have passed a bit. And so we're at the end of a very long conversation again, when all of a sudden it just goes to a freeze frame and we hear a news report the next day reporting on him having done this and killed his family, which again, do you think we're supposed to take that on face value? Could that possibly be another, is this going to happen type thing? Or do you take it as a definitive, no, all this was just leading to this inevitable road?
For me, it's happened.
That's how I took it too, but
yeah, I did think about that though, that it could be like maybe it's not him, maybe it is just a reiteration of the mantra before we're out, kind of, which just that it happens and whatnot.
Or he's
I think it does happen.
Something.
Yeah, which it did feel, I don't know, after a very like a more subtle, like slow burn movie, it felt a lot more like on the nose, like almost like, I don't know, like the opening of Texas Chainsaw Massacre or something, like for a second, like just so morose and in a way of,
I don't know. Yeah, it's very in your face,
and it like made me feel shocker. Kind of. I just watched Robert Altman's The Player or something. It's called. You ever see that? It's a wonderful movie about movies, but it.
Oh no,
like
I have. I have seen it.
The one guy is talking about. He's like selling a script or whatever, and he's like doesn't want any stars, and he's like he's like painting the bleakest picture of a plot line you've ever heard of, and then he's like, and then she dies because that happened, and like it's supposed to like bring the whole room to tears or something that he's selling these people to, and that's just it just came into my mind of just like, is that really like all I can really take away from something like the very ending? I think there's more I can chew on throughout the movie, but the very end result is just sort of like, Well, either way, doesn't matter what happens. It happens, man. And you saw it.
Oh, I see. So I think, yeah, you're saying because it's like a news report, and he talks at the beginning of like how he's read in the news that happens a lot. So it's like, yeah, are you saying as well? It's almost like the film is saying, yeah, man, this stuff happens all the time. Like this is just one of those times. That's funny because that's not really what the effect on me was. For me, the effect was, oh yeah, like this is not about all these conversations have been fruitless because he was too far gone and we don't know why he did it, but he did it. And at the end of the day, you read it in the news and you can have all your ideas about why someone would do this, but you'll never know because we just spent 90 minutes with him and we don't really know why he did this. But yeah, to me, it didn't really feel like just trying to shock. It was just like, oh yeah, this finally, to me, this was like clarifying in a horrible way. It was just like, yeah, we don't know. It's easy to read the news, but you can't really know. Even the people in his life didn't know why he did it.
I mean, I guess it's fair to be unsatisfied by a purposefully unsatisfying ending.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. Yeah.
The 70s are known for having, some of the most downbeat endings in even like mainstream films that we'll probably never see again. And this almost feels like this is trying to top all of them, or at least join in with it. And I guess maybe that's kind of a catch-22, where if the point of the movie is just to show a guy going in circles and us not getting to the root of the problem, also watching that happen for 90 minutes kind of could give you some diminishing returns as it goes on. Like if that's really all that's going on here, then it's actually a lot less to chew on than you would think going in. And
but yeah, but then for me, what's left of all this, like because it's almost like a subtraction, like the final, when he decides to kill himself, like, oh yeah, all those things didn't count. What is left? And for me, literally what all was left was he was not happy with his sex life. Right. And so it was like, oh, that's the tragedy of this man. Like it's just this sex life. And I'm laughing because I'm just like, he acts like this is like the worst thing that can happen to anyone is to like not have a good sex life with his wife. And I'm like, but it's kind of tragic as well, because I imagine, especially in the 70s, it was a real big deal. And like people maybe like him didn't feel comfortable going to like, I don't know, a sex therapist or even getting a mistress or just talking to your wife about it. So it was maybe like maybe it was even more impactful back then. I'm also thinking like this was the era of like second wave feminism. So maybe there's some lens through which this film can be seen where it is about the male ego and how even the most intellectual, well-spoken people, men, come down at the end to like they just want sex. To me, that's a possibility, but I don't know that the film is necessarily really leaning into this, or at least not. I don't think the film is that competently made. So like I think there may be some missed opportunities there to explore these ideas in a more like thought-provoking way, instead of just having a scene where suddenly he's just having sex with lots of women because that's what we like to see in movies, I guess. I never really wanted to see how Holbrook have sex with lots of young women, but that's happened. No. So
let alone 5.
Let alone 5, yeah.
Oh, I love how too, when he's kind of passed out, they're all sitting there like a Greek chorus discussing him and his situation, just like everybody else in the movie does.
This is how they got him to be in the movie, I think.
It was in his contract. All his movies in this time period have a scene like that. But that's why I would be interested in what angle the book takes on this, because when the movie starts out, it almost seemed like too much like a literary adaptation to me, where there's like wall-to-wall voiceover while not much of anything is actually happening on screen. Like it was really depending on the internal monologue, via voiceover. But if I remember correctly, that kind of goes away as the film goes on when it becomes about these conversations. And I wonder how much of those come from the book, because a lot of them felt like semi-improvised to me. Which maybe is why some of them work better than others, or some seem a little glib and some seem a little kind of wandering and like I'm not sure what the purpose is except kind of filling time before he gets back home. especially when he's talking to that lady in the train that breaks down, and boy, does she just talk about herself like endlessly.
Yes.
And then there's the lights come back up and he goes home. So
Yeah.
I agree that
I
maybe
was-
there's
yeah.
not a lot of directorial control over that. And again, I don't want to judge this guy by the rest of his filmography, but it does. Usually that raises alarm bells a little bit when there's like only one film like remotely like this in their whole.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. And
thing.
the fact that it's an adaptation was definitely on my mind about like midway through, just like this is real hard to like land something like this and get it all to feel like intellectually worthwhile. So I'm sure there's like you just missed certain bits of the book. I'm sure you missed quite a bit in a way. Like you could really sift out some important stuff.
Mm. Yeah, I also felt like he had the longest day. Like he had so many meetings in that day.
Yeah.
Like he saw so many different people. And I'm like, the time it takes him, I think he says it takes him 2 hours to get to the office and 2 hours to get back. And then also he has like 6 meetings. I'm like, what work gets done? Like it's just the longest. If it was my last day on earth, I wouldn't want to do that. Like it's the longest day.
That's what I thought was weird. Yeah, he went to work, and that's another thing in Single Man. He goes to work on the last day when he knows his. Why would you go to work on your last day? I don't understand.
And he
Maybe
bothers
Tom
to.
Ford has seen this film somehow.
I don't know.
Maybe.
I doubt it.
Well, yeah, I guess I'll just make my final thoughts here. We usually like to declare whether we would unwatch a movie for any reason at the time that we're done talking about it. And I wouldn't say that as bleak as the film is, it's not. I wouldn't say it's really hard to get through or anything. It definitely, with the way it ends, leaves you with an overwhelming kind of despairing feeling, I suppose. For me, the issue was more, I would have rather it spent more time actually evoking maybe his, depression or the discontent that he's feeling, as opposed to just letting everyone monologue about it. And that's an issue that I have with a lot of films that are kind of filled that way, where it almost like I could see this as being something like made for the stage in the later parts. And but I am glad that it's gotten more attention, at least for Louise Fletcher's performance. And it's always interesting to see something come out from that era of filmmaking that seems significant and yet no one has ever heard of. So going into this as like an unknown quantity was very exciting. But I was kind of disappointed on that level, though. But what about you, Seth? And then we'll let Elena have the last word.
I agree with your point, particularly about this, where it's like, I get that maybe at the end of the day, this is a nihilistic like display of bleakness, and that's okay. And there's plenty of examples in art. I think what you said like might have fixed this in some ways, or given me something more as like to actually maybe use the film conventions or create more of an experience where I feel what he's feeling, or at least have a window into like what it would be like to be in this bleak state. I guess that goes both ways, where it's like part of it is that we are supposed to be shut out like everybody else is, and we just can't get this guy. We just can't get in there and understand. But I wouldn't unwatch it either. I found it's interesting on paper. Like it's just like almost like an anti like I don't know, like an old fairy tale where they're like going from one person to the next, and usually it ends with like the Buddha achieving enlightenment or something after he meets this guy or the boatman guy or this guy, and then no, it's like the anti version of that where no, he implodes and kills everybody. I still really land on it being kind of not a worthwhile experience at the end of the day, because it's just nihilism for nihilism's sake. Sometimes just doesn't, I don't know, doesn't really work for me in a way. Unless there is something else going on that's on a more, again, like artful or poetic level, where this is all just so straight, I think is like, doesn't help.
All right, yeah. Any final thoughts then?
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I do feel like, to me as well, like I was kind of surprised when the film ended. I was like, oh, this is literally just nihilism. This is literally just someone who's depressed and who has kind of given up on life. And I thought it was going to be a film about a family annihilator, and it's not really about that, really. But actually, what you're saying about like, oh, it's like a film where someone goes from meeting to meeting, and you think, have you guys seen Oslo August 31st? That's kind of what the film is.
That's been on my watch
Joachim
list
Trier.
for years.
Well, it's I actually can't remember how it ends, but the kind of the structure is similar. And also there's a Louis Malle film that's based on the same book that is the same story. And they are kind of films about a guy who's really depressed and going from meeting to meeting. But there's something in those films that I think maybe is missing in this film, which is kind of like you hear the guy talk about how his view is so bleak and so depressing, but then you see something different in the image, so you have a kind of a contrast there where he might be describing how depressed he feels or his point of view, but then the cinematography and just the visuals and other things that he encounters like kind of give you a sense of like, wow, this guy has a skewed perspective on reality. Like it turns out it's quite beautiful and there are loads of nice things. And it felt like in this film, as you were saying, like it's a bit more like how Holbrook says what he thinks, and that's all we get. Like we don't really get to see another thing. Like we just get to see everything through his eyes pretty much until maybe at the end when you have Louis Fletcher kind of talking a little bit. But it's so to me that points to like kind of the most unsatisfying part of the film, which is just kind of cinematically speaking. I don't think it was necessarily that well thought through, like visually, what it was going to do with just the adaptation. Like it kind of just feels like it's just him saying the stuff. But I wouldn't unwatch the film because I think it's a really interesting kind of portrait of nihilism and also kind of, how to portray nihilism. And I think it's actually quite hard to do without, being boring because it's, I guess, a boring
or without going
boring.
backwards and kind of ruining the whole thing, and by like it being like, oh, if he did get happy in the end or something, or like he was wrong the whole time.
You don't have to do that to make it an interesting film. But I feel like it was a bit of a missed opportunity. But still, I quite enjoyed it, even though it was not really about what I thought it was going to be about.
Well, and maybe if this is a possible sequel to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, maybe The Stepfather could be a possible sequel to Natural Enemies. It doesn't say. Maybe he went and found a new family after.
Yeah.
Although, wait, no, he does kill himself, though, doesn't he? In the news
he does,
report.
yeah.
Okay, never mind. So much for that angle.
He didn't think of that, I guess.
Yeah.
Twist.
Well, so much for that transition. But anyways, The Stepfather is quite a different take on a similar topic from 1987, and is actually directly inspired by the case of John List, who was a guy who killed his 3 children, his wife, and his mother in 1971, and did go and start a new family, or at least got remarried, and was not caught for like 18 years afterwards because of America's Most Wanted. Did some sort of a special and somebody recognized him on there. And I guess that's something that possibly Natural Enemies would have been inspired by as well, since it happened, years before that movie came out. But this definitely takes that and runs with it to do something very specific. And it was interesting. I was looking at this guy's filmography, Joseph Ruben, who's done a lot of thrillers, like Sleeping with the Enemy is probably the most well-known one. But he also directed The Good Son, which the Macaulay Culkin very strange vehicle that we also covered on this podcast. And
funny. Oh man.
I was like,
why did you cover The Good Son? What is The Good Son about?
Oh my, it's basically Macaulay Culkin playing what's this? Like the bad seed, basically, where he's a psychotic little kid who has been killing people, like in his family, and Elijah Wood is his cousin who comes to stay with him and is being terrorized and trying to convince everyone that this kid is evil.
So it's a family annihilator, but he's a child.
In a way,
This family annihilator is a child. Wow.
Oh yeah,
because I was I was reading about it, and it's like I thought that maybe family annihilators were just dads, but actually they can be any member of a family. So they could be a child, I guess. I don't know if that's happened much, but
I don't know. I wasn't surprised that it was the same director once I saw I heard the score. Because both of those movies are just so entrenched in that era of movie making where every single scene has like orchestrated mood music to tell you how to feel. at any given point, or sometimes some confusing, like especially like at the end of the Stepfather. I feel like I'm not really sure what emotion that is to go along with this scene of dark ambiguity, sort of. Um, yeah,
Yeah, and so this is a horror movie, but also, I mean, it is very funny to me.
Yes.
um,
Yes.
and
It's like
satirical.
wacky.
It's
so
doing a
over
bunch
the
of
top.
things.
Yeah.
Yes. Much more ambitious than you would probably expect if you were just looking at the cover, going to rent a horror movie somewhere. And I think really I have to just talk right about the star of this movie, Terry O'Quinn, who I think is like the whole reason that this works. Like I can't say enough about how funny he is and creepy.
Yeah,
The
fun.
whole
Yeah.
thing depends on him, and I guess that he's been in some other things. He played Howard Hughes in The Rocketeer, and I guess he's known for being on Lost, which I've never watched.
Well, that's why I know him. So
Okay,
on Lost, which I never finished, so please no one spoil the ending for me. One day I will finish Lost. I don't know. But he was one of the best characters. I mean, there's a great actors on Lost, I think. But his whole thing is that he looks, and in Lost, his whole thing is that Terry O'Quinn looks like such a friendly guy, and like he's just so cheery and whatever. But then he's got dark secrets, and when you have the hints of the dark secrets, you're like, this could be the creepiest man who ever lived. He could have done anything in his past before the plane crashed on the island. Like he's completely terrifying. So he can really do both. So when I watched The Stepfather finally like a few years ago, I was like, wow, this is. I wouldn't be surprised actually if like J.J. Abrams cast him because of The Stepfather, even though that was like 30 years before, 20 years before, because it's kind of exactly taps into the same good like all American guy who's just the American dream, just a perfect guy, but then also can be this terrible creature.
yeah, and so again, this movie has a striking opening, kind of just like Natural Enemies, where he's cleaning blood off of himself and shaving and getting this whole new look together, and
He's
then
getting
just
ready to go to work, basically.
yeah, and walks by his murdered family in the living room, which the movie lets hang over it then, for the whole rest of the film, because we go directly to 1 year later where he's already with a new woman and her
Yes,
daughter, which I kind of
he
love
works pretty
how,
fast. Yeah.
yes, but I love how we're spared like the whole courtship and him scheming and everything. And we can dive right into the new family, possibly discovering
Yeah.
what's going on and what he's
Mm.
getting out of it.
It's
Uh,
kind of nice because I feel like that timeline, because I think we realize quite soon that it's just like 12 or 13 months later that he's already fully like living with that woman and her daughter. Like I feel like that introduction coming right after actually genuinely horrific shot of him standing in the living room with all these like scattered bodies, including like children and including like
mm.
this wife he killed. I feel like the contrast between that horrific scene and then this completely over the top fact that he somehow in 13 months would already be settled in our family kind of is a good introduction to like the mad tone of the entire film, because the film is so over the top constantly, because I feel like, and to me that's quite interesting because like the topic is so grim, like it's such a horrible thing, but the film every chance it gets like pushes things to like 11 to the most hysterical degree, and that makes it, as you were saying, Seth, at the beginning, that makes it more palatable because it's like a movie, it's got nothing to do really with reality.
Hmm.
So it's nice that we leave the kind of horrific crime scene from the beginning, which does look quite realistic. We leave that behind to go into a more like hysterical film kind of world, which is much more enjoyable and much more fun.
Yeah, we're granted like a more traditional main character, or at least some sort of like normal person to cling to, which is the daughter, uh, Jill Sholin, who is like she is kind of known as like a scream queen from a few different horror movies, and I like her in this. She is sort of where the fun comes in of she no one believes her, like mom
Mm.
doesn't see what's going on and only I see what's going on with this awful stepdad, and it's not just me missing my dead father, it's that this guy is not right, and that's like where all the fun of it comes from. And yeah, it is very poppy and snappy, but like especially compared to something like Natural Enemies. Oh my god.
Yeah, and there is like a satirical purpose here that this guy's whole personality is kind of based on sitcom dads. And I think
Yeah.
it's very wise that it alludes just barely at one point to somebody asks about his childhood, or did you go through this, hard stuff when you were a kid? And he just very vaguely alludes to, oh, yeah, we all do. But it doesn't give us any kind of history behind him. And I love that it doesn't try to uh, pathologize him in a realistic way. At the same time, he has these turns from murderous rage to this wistful family man that, even though it's a mask that he's wearing, there's still something that feels genuine about it. Like there's a real twinkle in his eye when, the stepdaughter is saying she wants to go to boarding school. And he's just like, but it's not a family without children. And when he's putting up that birdhouse and he's like, oh, it'll be nice when there's a family of birds living in here. Like he really genuinely wants these things, which is like creepy, but also kind of hilarious. And especially when you start to see that slip where he mixes up the names of his fake daughters, and then towards the end where he's like, he says his own name wrong and he's like, wait a minute, who am I here?
Says it
Yeah.
out loud. It's wild. That's like the scariest moment in the movie. Yeah, because he is
Yeah.
almost like a robot short circuiting, or like some kind of evil Martian who's like here in disguise, and he just can't quite get it right. And he has this, again, alien idea about what I can gain from having a family, or the idea of like why people have children and stuff, which all still ends in like, well, eventually I'll destroy them and find a new one. But you always want to have. There's almost like this weird innocence in like deep down, like a really really misguided innocence to him.
Mhm.
Yeah, like he's play
Yeah.
acting some actual psychological need that he has.
And that's why I think it's quite nice, because like the film, I think obviously through him, through his story, through the whole story, kind of satirizes this idea of the perfect family and just how toxic it is and how, bananas it is, and how it doesn't, it actually causes more harm than good, because when people try to fit these roles really hard, like if they just get miserable, obviously it satirizes that. But it also, through him, and I think through Terry O'Quinn's performance, you do feel like genuinely the joy that it can also bring when it works, like when there's this brief moment when um yeah, he's he's just killed her therapist, he's just killed her daughter's therapist. And it's for some, this is not what brings the family together, but it kind of helps because the therapist was helping her go to boarding school. um the daughter apologizes to him, and then they have this brief moment where the family works really well. And I genuinely was like, man, this is really nice. Like they genuinely have a really nice time. And they're sitting around the table and he's like, this is the first time I understand the meaning of Thanksgiving. And like he, as you were saying, he means it. He means it. And you can see like in his eyes, like he feels, he's really moved, like he's genuinely moved. But then what's really brilliant about the movie, I guess, is that the fervor with which he pursues this, and he's willing to do anything to have a family, is the same fervor that he would then have to destroy the family if it doesn't work. So it's like he's so intense either way, like either to destroy or to make. Like if he manages to do it in 13 months, then he must have really a lot of energy to do that, like a lot of desire, a really real big drive. But yeah, but it's not completely, I feel like there's the perversity of the movie is that you do get to feel a little bit like how nice a family is, and then it's gone.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
and
that's a good point, because it could very easily just be a like lampoon of the family unit,
Yeah.
or like, oh, like it's from purely from his warped perspective or whatever. That is good. I think that there is like, yeah, there is a reason that this is a lovely thing that people, we all like, very like lots of us want. But it winds up being also, as much as it is like a cartoony sort of slasher movie, I did find it kind of effective in the way that it does remind you like to investigate your own like idealistic ways of thinking about these things. If anything, just like making you feel dirty a little bit about having like some fantastical ideas about certain things or like high expectations about like things like that. Because that is what can become toxic. And ideally not in this wild way, but yeah.
Yeah, and I thought I'm not sure another actor would have pulled that off the way that Terry O'Quinn does. So we do have something that is a little psychologically penetrating. Well, at the same time, it does make you think of, if you were going to take it to a modern day example of, Instagram feeds with trad wives and trad husbands, whoever, who are longing for the good old days of the patriarchal family unit. This whole image that they're obsessed with. Going back to when the film was made, we would have been talking about Reagan, right? And the that strain of nostalgic conservatism, which I think runs all the way to the modern examples today that you could look, which it doesn't hit you over the head with that. It never mentions, Reagan or Reaganism
No,
or
there's no news
politics or
footage.
anything,
Yeah.
but it's in the air very much, just like, Watergate and Vietnam and everything would be in those 70s movies. So that stuff is very, very like interesting. But at the same time, sometimes I do feel like the black comedy is trying to break free of the slasher movie constraints, because there are, I don't know, whenever he's not on screen, sometimes things can seem a little phoned in. Like, we have that whole thread with the brother of a victim who is kind of in a bad like Miami Vice episode, trailing him for the whole movie.
It's like a thrown in teen romance sort of,
Yeah, even I'm not sure the rest of the cast outside of him isn't all that remarkable. So even though the stepdaughter is important, I feel like it kind of just, those parts kind of just get the job done plot wise.
The character of the brother of the victim is really bad.
Right.
He's acting.
Yeah,
he's acting.
Got,
he's just a guy who loves her hair, That's all.
And then it just ends in like a Halloran from The Shining moment where he finally gets there and he just gets killed almost immediately.
I think that's funny. I think that's one of the really dark humor bits of the movie, I guess. But it's just
I don't know how satirical it's being or knowing,
but it's not satisfying.
I
agree.
It's just I don't know if it knows what it's really doing there, but I agree that it is kind of like. And after all that, there he goes. He is not the hero of this movie at all.
No. And I mean, I was hoping it was going to end that way. Like, as I was watching it, I'm like, if he comes in and saves the day, then I'm going to be more upset than if he just gets Jack Nicholson throwing an axe into him as soon as he walks in the door. But he could have done it in a more, comic way or something,
Yeah, it was a bit far away, that bit. But it's funny that you mentioned the trad wives, because the trad wives of today, so I don't know if people listening know what they are, but basically they're like influencers, especially on Instagram or maybe TikTok, who somehow like they kind of sell a lifestyle which is supposed to be back to basics, where you don't use electricity even. I think sometimes it's just like you make everything yourself, you make all the food yourself, you feed food that you make to your children, they play outside in the grass. It's very like kind of farm related, whatever, but it's completely made up. No one's ever lived that way.
No vaccines, usually.
No vaccines, no like medicine and stuff, but it's all fake. Like, you don't need to look very far to find out that they don't really live that way, because it's not sustainable. And those people who are influenced by them are probably, getting sick because of this stuff. But anyway, but it's funny that you mentioned the trad wives, because the trad wives also, many of them have a real like religious element to what they're doing, where it's, I guess you were saying, the patriarchal family, but also the patriarchal family in a religious context, where the woman has to have loads of kids, and also has to be very, subservient to her husband, and he's the one who works and she doesn't work, and all this stuff, and and Jesus and God and all this stuff. And it's funny because like in The Stepfather, there is no real mention of religion at all, whereas in the story of John List, who inspired the story, that was kind of the main thing. Like, he was very big into religion. He grew up very, very religious, and he supposedly, when he killed his entire family, his argument was that they were all gone to heaven and he would join them soon, but not yet. So he didn't kill himself later. And it's funny. I think it's really interesting that they didn't include that in the film, in the Stepfather. And for me, it's like that makes it more fun and more about just the family unit in general, rather than just about religious fervor gone too far, which is maybe. I imagine it's also just less touchy that way, less of a touchy subject. But also, I just find it generally more fun because it's just like for me in the film, when there's like religion involved, it's just like, oh yeah, like anything can be explained by that somehow, and it's more interesting if there isn't that element kind of leading the characters.
Right, he doesn't have that as an excuse for what he's
Yeah.
doing. Like, I don't know, God, I gotta do it. No,
Yeah, that
it
would
is like
dull
a real
the satirical edge of it.
unsettling need for this. And I do, yeah, I agree with Mark, because I do feel like some of my frustration that I do have with the movie is that, if anything, I'm like, I think there's something here. I think they could have pushed and done a little bit more outside of having to lean on slasher genre ticks, right? Not that it isn't a successful slasher. I think it totally is like a fun popcorn slasher. Uh, and I'm not saying it needed to amp things up into like it was ever going to be this like amazing drama or something. But I do think it could have gotten weirder. I think it could have gotten a little bit more in a place that doesn't fit neatly into genre necessarily.
I totally agree. I really can't stop imagining a version of this movie that's more like Heathers, like going full over the top, with that whole element. And it does, by the time we get to the climax, it's very much just about him, chasing them around and yelling one-liners and everything, which at least there's something kind of funny about seeing, okay, the underlying persona behind this Mr. Cleaver, Father Knows Best type is a mad slasher running around, with the knives. So there's something to seeing that, but, they throw in an obligatory like shower scene. And I was like, come on.
I know, that felt so random. It was just like, well, this is not at all what the film is. Like this, what does that have to do with anything?
Yeah, she's supposed I think to be you're 16. Right. It was like, really, we couldn't even...
And then when she's chased around afterwards, she's not at all sexualized in the way she's dressed. So it really felt like, okay, we have to have that scene, but it's got nothing to do with the rest. Like she's not at all really sexualized. Even in the scenes where she's like kissing her boyfriend, she's not particularly sexual. It's shot in this cute way. You're just like, oh, they're just young people and having first kiss, but it's not like lustful or anything. So it really felt like tagged in, like just like, okay, we'll have to have one shower scene. And I think you're right. That's where like the very kind of B-movie credentials of the film really pop out. And Terry O'Quinn's performance kind of is what, to me, elevates the film. As you were saying at the end, when he's like raging, that's what happens is kind of predictable, but watching him do it is what's fun. And I agree, like, I feel like another version of the film, like maybe had, I don't know, more budget or was just more sophisticated, could have really maybe even kind of lent more into like criticizing the family unit a little bit and like showing how bonkers it is, because it doesn't really do that much. It could have really gone harder on that, I think, because the whole like just the whole like white picket fence stuff, like there's so much material there, like you can do so much stuff with it, and it feels like they just did kind of the bare minimum and focused more on him being crazy in the end, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah, and we talked a little, like for a second, about the remake before we started recording, which none of us have actually seen, right? Or you said you did see it, but you didn't remember?
I don't remember anything from it.
It was just probably telling, because from what it looks like that's what the version of this movie would be, where they just go with the bare plot and we're just making it a thriller without any kind of commentary or color to it. So I'm sure in comparison, this looks a lot better to whatever's going on in that remake. But at the same time, yeah, it's hard not to see it as either an overachieving slasher movie or an underachieving like dark comedy, where it's easy to imagine something that really runs with it. Maybe they didn't even realize it was going to like work so well on that level because of who they ended up casting,
Yeah.
And with the score, I mean, I know you were saying the score is crazy, but like it's also, we have to say, it's like a synth mad like kind of synth score that's really like noticeable from the beginning. I was like, what is this? They're really funny. I was really enjoying that. It's so bonkers.
Yeah, and there is something about it being in the context of a B movie, slasher.
Yeah,
that adds to it a little bit. But still, they just could have worked more with that. But it's definitely more successful than like I thought of the Slumber Party Massacre, because that's another film that is kind of known for having a underlying feminism to it in almost a satirical way. But when you actually watch the movie, it's so like diminished that you could even miss it. Where at least it comes across a lot more strongly in this film than it might have otherwise. As far as I would put it in like the upper like 90th percentile of these kinds of movies.
But yeah, same. But it only because I'm kind of like really crawling through the crap in some ways. Like,
now I did. I was curious enough to watch the first sequel to this film, which also stars Terry O'Quinn. They actually made two sequels, and the second one was supposed to be direct to video. They actually like finished filming it with it being a direct to video project, and then they decided that it was strong enough to release theatrically. It's definitely worse than
was
this.
it strong?
But it was not as bad as I was expecting it to be, though, because he is back, and he's just as good in it, even though the movie's a lot less ambitious, and it just kind of drags us through this time doing the whole courtship with him ingratiating himself to the family in the first place and being the new guy in town. It has a young Jonathan Brandis as his stepson. The kid, whatever, that's a whole other story. If you know who he is, it's very sad, but he's like a talented child actor who's in it. And it actually does have some funny moments. Like there's still a little bit of juice left in it.
Right. So are you saying that this time the character who's suspicious is a boy, like a male? Oh, that's because I just looked it up, and the Stepfather remake from I think 2009 is the same. It's like it's a man this time who's suspicious. It's a young son. And what's really weird, I remember actually when I watched my main thought, because it's not very interesting. My main thought was that it's so weird to cast as the son who's suspicious of a creepy stepdad. They cast Penn Badgley, who then played a serial killer in You. I'm like, but he is the serial killer. It's funny that he played like the normal guy. I'm just like, he's not normal. He doesn't look normal. Why would he play the normal guy? Like he should be. If they remake the Stepfather today, they could cast Penn Badgley as the stepfather, not as the person suspicious of the stepfather. But yeah.
Yeah, this is one that really needs a second remake. Like there's so
maybe
much
another
potential
sequel?
here. Yeah.
A fourth sequel. Bring Terry O'Quinn back. I don't know what he's up to these days. I'm sure he'd be delighted.
I know.
Sure, the step grandfather.
Whoa, nobody likes Steph.
So dangerous.
Yeah.
Complete with more of this soundtrack. My subtitles read apprehensive music in parentheses at one point. I'm really gonna delve into that genre.
Yep. So this is something that I think that certainly slasher movie fans could enjoy, but there's also an entryway there for other people. Even though I think we all agree it's not wholly successful with all of the things that it was going to do. Certainly not an unwatch for me. I probably I found this to be something that has a lot more redeeming qualities in it than the other movie. So very mild thumbs up from me. But and any other final thoughts or any topics we didn't get to with this one?
I don't know. I guess just for me, I think I think maybe we didn't talk enough about how like kind of funny I think the film is. Like I definitely the first time I watched it, because then I rewatched it and I remembered it very well. But like there are things that happen that you think in a normal register would happen in a certain way, but because this is a crazy kind of slasher B movie, they get so beyond unhinged. Like there's the scene where the psychiatrist sets up to visit one of the houses that is sold by the stepfather because he wants to check on the stepfather, see is this guy really creepy or not. And he not very subtly asks loads of questions to the stepfather to figure out like, he even asked him about his childhood at some point, which is so like it's just so dumb. Like it's so
Right.
like, it's just not subtle at all. And I think that's really funny, like how kind of unsubtle it is, and how like kind of wink wink the film is. It's just like, ooh, I'm gonna go kind of undercover to figure out stuff about this guy, but I'm just gonna like straight up ask him, and because he's not stupid, he's gonna be like, "Are you spying on me?" and then like the stepfather, instead of being kind of, I don't know, like sneaky about it and just being like not answering his questions but leaving it there, and maybe going later to kill him, because obviously he's going to kill him because that's what he does.
Nope, right
he just
now.
kills him on the spot in the house that he's selling, and I'm like, how does that work? Like, he's going to have to clean it up. Like, there's not even, as far as I know, there's no investigation about the murder of that psychiatrist. Like, it's just, and so the film keeps doing things like this where you're like, you're watching and you expect kind of logic at least to be at work, but not really. And I think that's really funny, and the film works for me on that level. So I had a really good time with it. I don't think it's maybe that deep or whatever, though I think it does say more about family annihilators than natural enemies in the end. But I really enjoyed it as like an experience. I think it's completely mad, and I wish it was more mad, but it's still pretty mad. And I enjoyed it for that reason.
Yeah, and he even just the way he delivers certain lines that might not have been funny otherwise are very, very funny. And just little moments like when there's a scene where he's watching Mr. Ed like in bed, and he is so into the episode and like mouthing along with Mr. Ed.
Oh yeah, no, there's just so much potential, like to push this to a like if John Waters could have directed this or something, you know.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like Serial Mom, but with Dad.
Serial Dad.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, and I would definitely say if anyone listening is going to watch both these movies, save this one for last.
Cheer yourself back up.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, it's I didn't walk away from that feeling, depressed or anything.
Yeah, and if you're really
a little icky,
if you're really hard up for more, you could maybe check out the sequel. Don't get your hopes up too much, but if you have enough, I don't know, substances in you or something, it's kind of a fun time.
Is it just called The Stepfather 2?
Yes, it might even take the out. It might be like Stepfather 2. Oh wait, no, actually, there is a little tagline in the title. I want to make sure I don't get it wrong. So, at least the version that I watched, yeah, it's Stepfather 2. Make room for Daddy.
No. I would need some substances. Like some crystal meth or something.
Yeah. And there is a part 3 that recasts the role. He didn't want to come back. So I think that's where I get off the boat.
Yeah, no, I don't think I'd be interested.
Mm-hmm. But, well, anyways, Elena, this was a blast. This was a great topic, and that had never occurred to me before. We got to see something that we'd never even heard of. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad I could, first of all, find like a set of films you hadn't thought of, but also one film that's like really, really bleak, and then the other film was not too bleak, because I was kind of worried. I was like, the topic is so depressing, but at least The Stepfather is so silly that maybe that tempers it a little bit, because it's really bleak. But that's me. What can I say?
Yeah, I mean, that is the one thing you could say about Natural Enemies. I don't think there is another movie like it, or another movie that would be quite like it. It's
no.
Just like, yeah, not a lot of people are going to go out of their way to make something like that.
I know there's a Michael Haneke film kind of similar, but I haven't seen it. Is it?
Man, he probably loves the shit out of that movie. I can believe it.
I don't know if you've seen that.
Is that the one?
Sad.
I haven't seen it, but it's like, what is that? Like 31 fragments of a chronology of chance, or a long
I think that's the
title
one.
like that?
I think that's the one. I haven't seen it either, but
well,
if you have me back, we can do another family annihilator double. I'm sure we can find more films.
Keep on annihilating the family.
Isn't his first? I think it's his first film, The Seventh Continent. Isn't there something similar going on in that film?
It's possible. I haven't seen it.
Okay, I think that is involving like a family that's getting ready to leave the earth, making preparations for some kind of violent annihilation. I'll have to look. It's been a while since I've seen that too, but yeah, I'd like to see Haneke do both these movies. Either one would be good.
I don't know if I would love seeing it. No. Need to give him a noogie and tell him to smile a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Well, Elena, is there anything else you want to draw people's attention to? Anything exciting coming up within the next couple of weeks?
Well, I have a podcast actually with my sister called Hard Truths, which is an Animus podcast. So through Animus magazine, and it's called Hard Truths because we were trying to find a name for the podcast. And there's the Mike Leigh film called Hard Truths, which in France is called Deux Sœurs, which means two sisters. So we thought we'd bring it back to Hard Truths. Also because we're trying to be brutally honest with each other and about films. And on that podcast, we talk about all kinds of films. We just recorded an episode about what we saw in Italy at Il Cinema Ritrovato, but we have also an episode about Sinners. We have an episode about the Westerns, a bunch of Westerns. We just talk about whatever we want to talk about. But we haven't, I think, talked about really, really sad films. Actually, we did an episode about Bleak Week, the London program, because this year it actually came to London. So if you want to hear me talk more about some really depressing films, we have an episode about 3 or 4 really sad and grim films. But we try to make the conversation not depressing. I think it's interesting. I think it's a good one.
All right, that sounds great. And did I see that you are twin sisters?
Yes, we are twins.
I saw there's a podcast that you were on where you were discussing like movies about twins.
Yeah, it does make it. We haven't worked out what to do about the fact that we have almost the exact same voice, so we just decided not to do anything about it. So I don't think people can tell who's who. Whenever because we do agree on a lot of stuff. So when we don't agree, we try to say, Elena thinks this, Manuela thinks that, just to make people, be able to follow a little bit. But it's no big deal.
Awesome.
It'd be a lot easier if you were Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Is it those kind of twins? Yeah, no, Seth and I get mixed up a lot too. So
I've been wanting to watch that
again. All right. Well, thanks again, and wish you the best luck with everything. That sounds like a lot of fun. A lot more fun than this.
Thank you. We try to not just talk about sad films, but I mean, I think talking about really upsetting films is really good and important, and better than just watching them on your own.
Helps us become less upset.
Exactly, you get over the trauma.
That's what this podcast is all about.
I'm still.
Unwatchables is produced by Tony Scarpitti, hosted by me, Marc Dottavio, and Seth Troyer, with artwork by Micah Kraus. You can find Seth and I on Letterboxd under Marc Dottavio and Sloth Troyer. You can also check us out at unwatchablespod.com for links to our Twitter and Instagram, or support us on Patreon for bonus content and to have a say in what we watch. Thanks for listening.